There's a problem in the world today that we all face or see or deal with in one way or another, and that is that weakness is allowed to exist unnaturally. I'm sure natural selection's probably been spoken on one too many times, but I'm going to do it anyway. So many people that probably shouldn't even be here are here, and their genes are allowed to carry on and weaken and further weaken as the generations go on. An example would be women get to a point where they're so unhealthy that they can't have a child on their own like you should have. They got to go to a doctor. A doctor's got to do a C-section or some kind of stupidity. Where it should be that, hey, if the woman's not healthy enough to have a child naturally and it dies, natural selection. If the woman doesn't survive it, she wasn't healthy enough anyway. Natural selection. But now, in the day and age that we are in, everything is allowed to be. I can say it for myself. I shouldn't be here under what I'm saying. Under the natural selection, my mom was not healthy enough to produce me. So by that standard, I shouldn't be here. So maybe I'm part of the problem too. However, I'm here, so you just got to deal with it. Men are no less responsible for this than the women are. Because where the men don't stand up and be men, they've allowed these things to happen that caused the human race or whatever to degenerate to this standard. So it's the men's fault more than it is the women's fault because they've allowed these things to be. Where men should have stood up and said, look, this isn't right. We're not going to do it this way. We can clearly see what it's doing. We are losing ground generation by generation. Men should have the mind to say, look, this is not strong. This is not healthy. But they don't, because it's also what's worked on the women has first worked on the men to make them dumb, weak, no resistance. They'll do whatever they're told. As for me personally, I absolutely cannot stand the level of faith that people have, both men and women, in the medical system today. That is God to most people, and they'll do anything they suggest or promote for you to do. Not to mention force you by law to do. We see the result of this process in so many ways every day, and we ignore it. We've been trained to ignore it. We see men act like women. We see women act like men. We see women pick up the torch and swing their big balls because that's what they've been trained to do. And this because men do not stand up and do their job and be men. So why wouldn't a woman do that job? There's nobody else going to do it. The men are too watered down. The allowing of the weak to be by unnatural process is why this is. I do not support abortion. And natural selection is not abortion. Abortion is just prolonging a problem. Some people who are going to produce something useless anyway, just put it off. They might change their mind in a couple of years and go ahead and have a child. It's a waste. The lack of this natural selection being in place creates a society where men are just controllable. They're no longer strong. They're no threat to anything. They're just pawns on a chessboard. The kings and the queens on that board can move you however they want to because they know they've got no resistance from you. You're going to do whatever they say. Now, for those of us who are here, we're here. And even though we shouldn't be, if we understand these things, we have a responsibility that's on a little higher level than everybody else who's just going to follow along and do whatever they're told. We have this responsibility to put this information out and let people at least have a chance to say, okay, I'm not just going to be a weak nothing. Something's got to change. And just because you don't belong here don't mean that you can't continue to have purpose, because you are here. And just because you're weak and you started off weak does not mean that you cannot reverse it and be made strong. You may not be able to turn into Superman, but just turning it around from what you've been given is better than nothing. And as with everything in this life, it all begins in the mind. If your mind is weak, so will your body be weak. If you got a strong mind, the body will follow. So it all comes down to your mind will have to be changed in some form or another. Otherwise, the path of weakness will just continue to grow. Thanks for watching.